Sun and Moon, or known as Eclipse when they are combined together, is probably one of the most intriguing and interesting characters introduced in the newer FNAF content, essentially help wanted to now. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another discussions video. As you can tell, today we are going to be talking about Sun and Moon and just various details that I've noticed while playing some of the games, and a little bit of the stuff that I know about him in the one FNAF book that he's in. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer, I am not a certified theorist, so some of the stuff I could bring up, it could be wrong or it could be proven wrong with other points of evidence. I don't know. I'm just trying to bring up stuff that can spark and generate discussions amongst people to just get people thinking about this kind of stuff, because I feel like sometimes it's just sort of left for other people to work on, and I think it'd be good to just get everybody to talk about this. So again, I could be wrong, but I just wanted to bring some stuff up to just get people talking about it. But anyway, enough of that. Let's just get right into the video, starting with Sun and Moon's history in the games and books. So, Sun and Moon. Their first appearance was in Security Breach, starring as the daycare attendant, of course. Everybody knows the iconic scene of him leaping out of his tower and somehow not crashing and getting destroyed after falling into the ball pit. So after his appearance in Security Breach, where he really only shows up for the most part as the daycare attendant, and then you kind of get glimpses of him when you're supposed to go recharge, but he's really not in the game all that much. More than Vanny though. But moving on to his next appearance, which was in Security Breach Ruin, where he similarly has a smaller role, just being in the daycare. However, this is where we start to get a little bit more info and a little bit more stuff and details shown to us about what Sun and Moon really are, which starts to bring up more discussions, but we'll get into that in the next section. After appearing in Ruin, his next appearance would be in Help Wanted 2, where I have not played the game yet, but as far as I know, he's really only in the carousel ride. He might be in other sections. Again, I don't know. I've not played it yet, but I know that he's at least in the carousel section. So again, he shows up, which brings importance to him, but they're not making him front and center, which I think makes a little bit more intriguing about how he fits into the overall story of FNAF. And of course, how can I forget that he is also in one of the Tales of the Pizzaplex books, where we kind of get to learn a little bit more about him. I've not read the book, but I know just a little bit about it, because the games and books actually bring up some really interesting details, which we'll get into in the next section, but they tend to give us a good base to kind of connect him to other characters that, from what I can tell, most people notice the connection but don't really do anything with it. But we'll get into those details now so that we can just start talking about those. Moving on to the details that I've noticed, especially while playing the game, but just also kind of piecing together by looking at other media, is a big connection between Sun and Moon and the Mimic, which is something that everybody already kind of knows. The big piece of evidence is obviously the independently moving teeth, but I also think a lot of just the design details on both the Mimic and Sun and Moon also kind of just link them with just how rudimentary both look, and some of like the joints and legs and stuff like that. A lot of it just puts them together, as these are both very early and very rudimentary animatronic designs that were built by the same person at around the same time. And obviously we don't exactly know when that time was, but I think I can also piece that together, which we'll get into with the next piece of evidence, which is the fact that Sun and Moon, at least the costume of Sun and Moon, is connected to the other animal costumes that we find in the basement section in Ruin, where the Mimic is being held. And a big piece of that is the mesh wiring underneath of the suit is the exact same on Sun and Moon as it is on those suits in the basement, which was a detail that I kind of noticed, but I feel like other people have also noticed. I mean, it's not hard to see, but a lot of people just, I feel like, gloss over it and don't really think much of it. But I think it's a very key and important detail of placing Sun and Moon and thus the Mimic at a point in time within the FNAF timeline. I think another interesting detail that I noticed, which I also don't see a lot of people talking about, is the sort of head shape and mouth on Sun and Moon is kind of similar to one that we see on the costume that the Mimic wears in the Scooper ending. It just has a similar design shape, and it's just something that I feel like people haven't really noticed. I mean, I'm sure dedicated theorists who look at every single pixel in a FNAF game have noticed it. I just don't see too many people bringing it up as a point of evidence to connect Sun and Moon and the suits in the basement. Now, these pieces of evidence are important in understanding how Sun and Moon is connected with other details and characters in the games, but I also think that these can be used to connect him into his role that he has in his Pizzaplex book, which, if I'm not mistaken, it describes him as being made to perform for an audience. Like, he's a theater animatronic, I'm pretty sure. So he's supposed to perform on stage and be sort of he's like a theater animatronic. And so that's why it's weird that he becomes the daycare attendant. But I think his connections that we see in the game give another meaning behind why he's performing for an audience animatronic, like on a stage. Which we're going to get into my sort of idea / theory as to where Sun and Moon really fit in and the ultimate connections between other characters and details in the series. So, how do I think Sun and Moon fit in within the FNAF timeline? So my theory, I use that word lightly, is that both the Mimic and Sun and Moon, their animatronics, were built at around the same time. I think Sun and Moon are a little bit newer, but they were built at around the same time by the same person with largely the same materials. And I think that they were both built to perform in the circus. Now, that's the first time I'm bringing up the circus in this theory video, mostly because that's not really what this video is about, but I think it's still important to kind of knowing where Sun and Moon fit in. So my idea is that they were both built to perform at the circus. Now, we know that in the Tales of the Pizzaplex book, we know that the Mimic was built to take care of Edwin's son when Edwin was off working on whatever. But I think that it still makes sense for the Mimic to be used in a role outside of that, because you're not going to have it take care of your kid forever. I mean, as far as I know, the story is that the Mimic was built to take care of his kid when Edwin was off at work. But there would be times that you wouldn't be at work. So I think that the Mimic had a secondary role of also performing alongside Sun and Moon in the circus. But once the circus kind of either gets destroyed or it gets abandoned or it's just done, they're done with the circus, I don't know. I think that also at the same time Edwin disappeared after his kid got killed in, I think, a car accident. And so I think Fazbear Entertainment took both of these animatronic designs and moved them to their own location, which was more theater inspired. Now, I did kind of gloss over a little bit of a important detail in that I think they're a pair. The Mimic and Sun and Moon are a pair. They're like the iconic duo before Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. So how I think it worked is that Sun and Moon would be the more acrobatic and agility based animatronic, because you see that in the games. Like, he can essentially fly and move around super quick. So he would be doing the more stunt based stuff. I think the Mimic would wear the costumes, which we know he likes to do, and he would be like the more grounded extra character in performances. And I think they translated that over to the theater base building, where Sun and Moon and Mimic would have a similar concept, where the Mimic would wear costumes out on stage and Sun and Moon would be the more like dramatic and agility based animatronic. But eventually something happens with the Mimic and that location, and it all just gets abandoned, and the animatronics are moved out, but everything else gets abandoned. And that's where I think we find the suits in that basement area, because it really doesn't seem like it would be in Fredbear's. I mean, it could be, but I think that location that we're looking at is the theater base where they would be used. And so what I think happened is that after this theater location got closed down, the idea was to move on to Springlock suits and then eventually just full-on base animatronics that we know from like all the other games. But at some point, Fazbear decided to bring back Sun and Moon in a role of a daycare attendant. And I think an important detail that would really expand why they would use Sun and Moon as a daycare attendant is because I think the Sun and Moon animatronic isn't just another robot. I think it was actually Edwin's attempt to make a Mimic 2.0. Now, I know that there already are Mimic 2.0 animatronics, but I think that Sun and Moon were the initial attempt. That's why they look so similar to Mimic, and that's why I think, like, you kind of see that in the split personality, right? Sun is more kind and more caring. Moon is more like evil, I guess, which plays into the theater role. But I also think that's why Fazbear used them in a daycare role, because you could teach it to mimic being a daycare attendant. Now, that's a little bit of a stretch, but that's what I think makes the most sense to me. Now, like I said, I could easily be wrong. I probably am wrong, but I just think these are good details to bring up and talk about, to just get people talking about this kind of stuff. But that's sort of my idea as to how Sun and Moon fit in and how they connect to other stuff. They've been here a lot longer than I think we give them credit for, and I think they're also more important to the story than we give them credit for. So I just want to get that out there, but we'll talk more about that in the conclusion. But in conclusion, a big thing I just want to get across is that this is more of just a rambling video to kind of talk about a bit of details that I've just been wanting to talk about in a video at some point. So this is all just to kind of ramble on about this kind of stuff and to just get it out there for people to talk about, people to notice these details, and for people who are kind of better at making theories and are more involved and dedicated to making theories, to kind of take these details and maybe spin their own theories out of this and to kind of just talk about this stuff. Because I think, like, that's the whole point of these discussion videos, is to just get the word out there on this kind of stuff for people to just talk about. Because obviously, again, I'm not a dedicated theorist. I just make stuff for fun. So I just want to get stuff out there for people to talk about and for people to just come up with their own theories, because I'm sure that there's stuff I missed or stuff that I kind of got wrong that other people would be like, okay, well, this is wrong, but I see where you're going with this and we can maybe spin it this way. So again, for like the 100th time, this is just for fun and just to get people talking about this. Now, obviously, there's stuff that I probably didn't explain very well in this video. That's kind of something I do. I ramble on and I don't explain a whole lot of stuff very well. So if you guys have any questions or want me to clarify anything in this video, just be sure to leave a comment. That's because, like, hey, you know, I had questions about what you were talking about with this, and I'll try to go in and explain it the best I can, because that is something I am kind of known for, is not explaining things very well. So I'll see what I can do to make it better, but anyway, that's about it for this video. So be sure to go check out those shameless plugs linked in the description below. Leave a like, comment if you have any questions, subscribe with notifications on if you want to see more discussion videos and more gaming videos. I thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and remember that it's just a game theory. Man, I miss Matt Pat. See you next time.